Hi, and welcome to the Route to CISO podcast. It's me, Chris Rides. I'm going to be your host, and I'm going to be chatting to seasoned Chief Information Security Officers about their career journeys. We're going to be unencrypting their real-life stories and searching for the hidden keys to help you fast-track your cybersecurity career. Hi, welcome to the Route to CISO podcast. It's me, Chris Rides, your host, and I'm here with Yaron Levi from Dolby. Thank you, Yaron, for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Well, I know you've got a fascinating background, multi-time CISO. I think maybe a good start would be just to share with my audience what you're up to right now.
Well, CISO life. So as you mentioned, I'm currently the CISO at Dolby, which is one of the coolest companies I work for. And throughout my career, I worked for different types of industries. So I was in healthcare, I was in financial services, I was in e-commerce. When I worked for eBay. So I got to see like a lot of different types of industries and disciplines and people and things like that. And I'm finally in an industry that is actually, or in a company that actually make fun things for people. So that's what I'm enjoying so far. And a lot of people ask me like, so you're this is at Adobe, right? I'm like, no, Dolby. It sounds similar, but it's very, very different. So yeah, you've seen us, it's probably in cinema. You've seen us like if you have like TV or soundbars, Dolby Atmos, Dolby Vision. Really, really cool technology, and we're actually coming to cars too. So Dolby, you can get Dolby Atmos, which is a crazy experience when you sit in your car and you kind of listen to this whole immersive sound of radio. It's just absolutely beautiful. But yeah, you can get it like in Mercedes, you can get it in Volvo, you can get it in Rivian, you can get it in Lotus, I believe, several Chinese manufacturers, and you can imagine we are trying to get to others as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet that's well, I mean, with all the cars going electric, you don't get the sound of the exciting sound of the engine anymore. So you need to have that replaced.
True. And also, if you think about, hey, you're going to sit at a charging station for the next 45 minutes and wait for the car to charge, what are you going to do? Well, you have a big screen in the middle. I mean, you're going to have an awesome sound system. Just sit and watch a movie.
Yeah, fully immersive. The 45 minutes will go by zoom by, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Brilliant. Do you get to go to, does this mean you get like invites to some sort of secret premieres and those sort of things?
I'm not that high enough on the food chain, but some people do. And it's cool because sometimes you walk through our office and you'll see like Grammy Awards and Oscar Awards for different things. So I have a picture of me kind of holding down one of those Grammy Awards, but that's probably the closest I will ever get to winning a Grammy.
That's nice. I mean, I don't know whether you know this, but 2012, when my company started, Cybersecurity, we started out of LA. So we worked with a lot of the movie business, a lot of that. And it was, even though, you're not in the movie business, you're involved in it, you're helping things happen in it, you're securing it, right? It's quite an exciting and interesting area to be in. And really surprisingly, a lot of people don't think about how mature that industry is when it comes to security, right? They've probably been dealing with piracy for how long now? So
forever, absolutely, yeah. There's some really, really cool and interesting technologies there to protect that. And I mean, if you think about, the next, whatever, Star Wars movie or something or another, right? And people want to get their hands on it like before everybody else. And you don't want to let them do that. So yeah, they had to deal with this issue for a very, very long time, both on the physical side as well as on the cyber side. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think I suppose that's another thing to think about, right? So you've got maybe people that want to get access to it for nefarious purposes, or then you've got the people that are just obsessed. I love the latest Star Wars movie, right, or something like that. I just want to get it first. I just want to have seen it before everyone else. So yeah, I get that. Great. Well, look, let's go right back. You've had an amazing career up to now. How did you even get into cyber? What was the foundation for you?
That's a great question. I thought about it a little bit, and I don't know. I guess in some ways I've always been in cyber, and maybe way before cyber was even cyber. But I think for me, like cyber is a mindset, right? I mean, if you think about, we are the people who like to look at things in a different way, and how things were created, and like how do you kind of work sometimes, how you color outside of the lines, not inside the lines all the time, right? I mean, so I think that's kind of mindset. I think I've always kind of had that mindset. So I think going back to, I don't know, when I started with computers, there's always a group of people that we got together and we tried to figure out ways to, okay, how can we get like more games and how can we, now I'm really dating myself, speed up those like cassettes that you had to put in order to
Yeah.
load your game for like, 45 minutes. I'm like, I want to play faster than that, right? I mean, so yeah, I think a lot of that was, again, not cyber is today, but I mean, it's definitely, I mean, that mindset of like, like we have been doing like in cyber and just, kind of thing like that. So I think I've always kind of been there one way or the other. And of course, like, BBSs and programming and networking and just, different stuff. So I can tell you that I planned to get to cyber. I was, born in cyber, but as the things were kind of evolved over the years and different things that I got to do. And like, when the internet started, like, remember, like, it was fascinating to me that I'm originally from Israel, and
Yeah.
it was fascinating to me that I can sit, in my parents' living room and connected to through a modem, through the phone. And of course, I mean, they're like, get off the phone. I'm like, no, no, I actually want to do something. And I could connect with people from the other side of the world and actually talk to them. And now they're like, okay, how do you find people to talk to? And I figured out a way. And again, back then it was not even like web very much. I mean, there was a little bit of web, but you all those telnet services and you using things like, finger and things like that, right? To figure out who is running on the server right now. And they're like, send a message, hey, I want to talk to you. So yeah, that's, I think, a lot of that kind of how a lot of things started. And throughout the times and throughout the career, just opportunities presented themselves. And here we are. I found myself in cyber.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I remember the days. I remember the set that sound that the tapes used to make when they were loading, right? Like the excitement that was building to play whatever. For me, it was like Football Manager or something like that,
Right,
where there
right.
was nothing to see. It would just work out all the scores, right? There was no real graphics
Yeah,
to it.
yeah.
But the excitement of doing that, yeah, it's like it's crazy to think how long ago that is and how far we've come with all of that sort of thing.
And,
What
in a grand scale of things, it hasn't been that long. I mean, it's quite a bit, but it has been that long. I mean, if you think and like the amount of changes that happened,
yes.
and what it created, like how it changed our way of life. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. It's been like it's a truly life changing. I think if you look like people when people go through different looking through the history and the things that have changed the world, things like the internet's been I mean, I don't know what the next thing is. What do you think? Is AI going to be the next big change?
Well, if we're not going to destroy ourselves before, maybe. But yes, I mean, that may be one of the things. I don't think we can really imagine, right? I mean, if you think about, I don't know, smartphones, iPhone. I mean, there were somewhat of a smartphone before, but really kind of came out in 2007, right? And it wasn't that long ago. And if you think about how now this device that we have is actually not much of a phone anymore, like who is using it to make phone calls? It's like, you do everything but phone calls on that
Right.
phone, right?
Yeah. Like the people are like, why are
So
you phoning me? You could have texted me or sent me an email or a
it,
WhatsApp message, right?
it's always like I almost kind of laugh when I get like, the phone bill, right? I mean, for my family, and I look at my kids' call record. So the only 2.5 minutes call they have every month is basically the one I'm calling them. And everything else is text messages. So yes.
Now what? So you did you obviously you were in technology. Did you go to college for technology or like did you go to college at all?
I did. So in Israel, I was in the military for 5 years, and then I left, and I wanted to go to university, and I started with computer science. But because I was dealing with like computers and technology and programming, I don't know, since I was like 13 years old, pretty much, I got like really, really bored.
Yeah.
So I did like all the, calculus and physics and all like, the foundational classes, that you have. And we didn't really kind of get much to programming just yet, but I was just kind of waiting for all of that. And then you learn like all the theory behind like operating systems and things like that. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I already done some things in assembly already. And like, it's kind of boring, all this academic stuff. So I left and I switched to a business school. So I graduated with a degree in management, in business and management, but not in computer science. But yeah, That's I
I'm
was deep
sure
in
it's
technology, everything. Yeah.
laid great foundations. I mean, I think anybody that's coming through from the business side, and we'll talk, we've got so many questions to go through anyway, but I know at some point we'll talk about attributes and things like that. And the business side, for anybody that's kind of moving their career on, understanding that business side is important. There's a couple of people I've seen that have come from business rather than technology, but knowing the technical side helps a lot. What do you think it is that brings, I mean, Israel has so many amazing startups in the security world. They're really doing an excellent job at bringing through these companies that are really sort of cutting edge and looking at issues. And I know so many people that are either involved in sort of CISO advisory boards for investment places, VCs, PE companies, things like that. What do you think it is that makes Israel so good at bringing people through into our industry?
It's interesting. I think a lot of it has to do. So there's a book out there that talks about it. It's called Startup Nation, and they talk about this why it's like in the DNA, right? Like why it's the DNA of the country. And I think by and large, I mean, if you think about the history of Israel and how it came to be, and then what happened and what's still happening, I mean, through all the time, Israel always had to figure things out and figure things out, always kind of being the underdog, always being the underdog, in many ways, right? And somebody was asking me the other day, like, how do you think about kind of your role as a CISO and things like that? And I said, coming from Israel, and if you think about, the country, and not getting to politics, just numbers, right, or
Yes, yeah.
facts, smaller companies compared to the adversaries that are surrounding it, and, outnumbered, outgunned, underfunded, again, big pictures, and yet you survive for 70 plus years. Like, how do you do that? Well, you kind of don't have a choice. And if you think about it, CISO, it's kind of the same thing, right? We are underfunded, undergunned, undermanned compared to the adversaries that we have, and yet we have to survive because we don't have a choice, right? So I think a lot of that reality almost kind of forces you to be in this situation that you have to be pretty creative to figure things out. And I think, like, as we've seen that in our industry, and I think as we kind of see it coming from there, they try to figure those things out and being constantly out of threat, trying to always outsmart your adversaries and trying to find new creative ways to protect yourself. That's where it starts. And I think a lot of other places where did not have that adversity or were not subject to that adversity, they were just not subject to, or were, forced, if you will, to come up with that, right?
Yep.
So,
Yeah, you see that.
yeah,
It's funny that that applies, even outside of particular countries, like particular people. I see some of the best salespeople, some of the best entrepreneurs have come through really hard times, and come. There's not that many that come from situations where they're given everything on a plate and then they just need to put it all together, right? Most of them have to figure it out. They've had to figure out things for a long, long time, and those sort of people certainly seem to do very well. Starting any sort of companies, or doing actually doing a lot of things successfully as well. I'm sure the people that are really out there and passionate about security, the ones that have maybe had to work the hardest to get in, are the ones that appreciate being involved in the industry the most, and probably are most passionate about it because of that.
yeah, yeah. I don't know many people who were born and said, "Hey, I'm gonna be in security one day."
Right.
I think, right. I mean, you want to be as a kid. I mean, you want to be a fireman. You want to be a police officer. I mean, you want to be a bus driver, right? I mean,
Yep.
cool things like that, right? But yeah, I mean, security, you just, I don't know, evolve into it in some shape or form based on the things that happen in your life, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, I think well, a lot of us we just find our way. When people are, it's funny when you got to choose subjects throughout school at certain periods in your education, or going to college, like having to pick what you want to study in college when you still really haven't at that age you have no idea what career you're really going to be in. So I guess that's why a number of people have degrees that you wouldn't necessarily say are
Right.
specific or relevant. Nowadays, of course, there's a lot of cybersecurity degrees, but I don't think you necessarily have to come from that background to work in this, just like the same with most other
I,
industries.
I actually think this is the beauty about this industry is that there's a genuine need for people from such a diverse background. and bringing different perspectives and different experiences to the table, to contribute. Because whether it's, communication, people, education, technology, whatever, I mean, there's a place for almost anybody to do something and start and grow a career in security. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and we've got such a welcoming industry as well. Like, I think people are pretty open-minded. I know there's a real big push to try and bring more diversity in and give people more opportunities. But I think overall, once you get in, and maybe it's easier for me to say this, but I feel like it's a very welcoming industry, and you can find your people here. They're here somewhere, right? Where whoever
It
you are,
is.
whatever you need from it, they're here. You just need to find them.
Yeah. If you know how to connect with people, if you know how to network, you always find somebody. And I think there's always going to be somebody who is willing to help answer a question. Maybe they're not going to, spoon feed you with everything, but at least,
Yeah.
I mean, they will put you in the right direction. They will expect you to put the effort, but I mean, they will support you and they will put you in the right direction. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I try and help everybody, but I mean, it's not, I can't do, you are right, you can't do everything, right? I have like probably 5 messages a day saying, is there any way you could just have a phone call with me and look through my resume? And I'm truly, if I did that every single day, I wouldn't have a business. I probably wouldn't be paying my bills. My wife wouldn't be happy, right? Because like that's, and that's not something that I want to charge for, or even that I think I'm not a big proponent of people paying for resumes to be written and stuff, because I think there's enough out there to help you build it, and it's an extension of yourself. But anyway, we're getting off topic a little bit with that, but yeah, I definitely think you can't do everything for people, and hopefully, if
Right.
you can explain that in a nice way, I feel most people are pretty understanding. If somebody, I'm like, if you go into any conferences and you see me, come and grab me. I'll be happy to chat to you, but can't spend half an hour going through your resume, because not just because I don't want to do it for you, because there's 5 other people that are asking me to do the same thing, and if I do it for everybody, so I try and work ways around it. But now going back, let's get back into your career. Obviously, feel like you've always been sort of in it or had the mindset. What was your first sort of dedicated security role?
So I would say the official kind of security role I had was back in the days, so I go, I don't know, 2004 or 5 time frame. I used to work for a company that was supporting Sprint, which is part of T-Mobile these days. And back in the day when Sarbanes-Oxley came out, Sprint contracted us to build essentially an identity and access management system that will sit between everybody who touches the telecom network and the network itself. I would say, and in that capacity, I did different things from project management to solution architect to architecture, sales support. I mean, things like that. And I think that was probably my official, if you will, getting into security as part of a business or a company or kind of the job. And with that, I mean, things kind of developed. After that, over time, after that company, I was recruited to another company here in Kansas City that was in the managed VPN business. So a lot of networking, VPN services, what a lot of companies call these days zero trust. We've done this back in 2009. But that was interesting because again, that gave me another perspective. If I did in Access initially, that gave me more perspective around network security. And I've done networking before, but not much network security and VPN and things like that, right? So now I started getting things started to kind of converge and connect to each other, and things like that. And with that company, one of the things back in the day, my CEO at the time asked me like, well, what can we do with this? Because VPN still is a commodity, and yeah, we're selling a VPN service, but I don't know, Cisco give you a VPN for free, so why would anybody kind of buy our services, right? And we started to work with, back then there was this new thing called cloud that started to emerge.
Yeah, I've heard of
Yeah,
that.
and we thought, oh, actually, I have an idea. Maybe we can use that to connect securely to cloud, which nowadays people know as VPC. Back then there was no VPC, so things like that. So now, as you start doing more and more things like that, you start to get exposed to various other things and other knowledge and other domains, which that also led me to a friend that I met, I mean, through this work, and introduced me to the Cloud Security Alliance. So I joined the Cloud Security Alliance back in 2010, I believe, 9 or 10. And I met amazing people where for the next 4 or 5 years, we're meeting every Wednesday morning for an hour and a half over the phone. For 2.5 years, I didn't know any of them other than the phone. And we became good friends. And, we were part of the group that wrote the Cloud Controls Matrix, the Cloud Consensus Assessment, and I was co-chairing the Cloud Enterprise Architecture. So cloud security became a thing, and I learned that, right? So I mean, so all of those different things kind of gave us opportunities, or gave me opportunities, to learn, to contribute, and to know people, and just to expand, the security domain. So it wasn't just the job per se, but also that was also the involvement with the industry, and it continued to grow since then.
Yeah, and like kind of building your network. I love that. I can't sort of push enough, and I try and every opportunity I get, I really push sort of people being involved in the community and finding their connections. And I mean, I'm a big proponent of the Cloud Security Alliance. I was one of the founding directors of
Oh,
the
cool.
LA, that's actually SoQuel chapter originally. It was back in 2012, and they've been amazing. I mean, you must have been there right at the beginning because I guess it was 2009. I think it was around 2009, 2010 when they actually
It was start,
started,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. I think when I joined, I was probably, I don't know, member number around the 100 or 100 and something or another. I mean, not much, right? I don't know how many members they have today, but it's like in the tens of thousands or something, but it's
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
Globally, it's amazing, what the team did over there.
Yeah, and they're really they're sort of going into like there are a lot of other areas. Like, I didn't realize they do sort of the IoT. They've now got like a controls matrix for IoT. They've got their September event, which is coming up soon, or actually by the time this goes out, might have already happened. But I know that's focused on sort of AI and cloud, and so yeah, like great organization. Obviously, there's a lot. This is probably a good chance to say like whatever your interest is in security, there's an organization, a non-profit,
Yeah.
or something out there you can get involved in. Whether that's something like ISSA or OWASP or CSA, ISACA, maybe if you're more on the governance side. There's a lot of them out there, and a lot of them have local chapters that you can join. And if you, as we've known, if you can't find one, make one. Like they're
Right.
always looking for people to get people together.
And these organizations are amazing. I mean, if there's any one testament to the power of the community, is those organizations of security.
Yep.
And how they help each other, how they, kind of create the body of knowledge, how they educate people. It's been absolutely amazing.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. So you got into your going back to your career, you got into your first sort of dedicated security role. Was that something that just kind of happened naturally? Because I know some people, especially at the moment, there's people that really want to get into security and they're kind of struggling. I think some people like what are looking to only take roles that are in security rather than roles that might move them gradually into it. So I don't know whether you got any tips or any advice from your experience.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think the times were a little bit different because back then there wasn't much of a security industry. I mean, there was some, but I mean, it wasn't like what it is today, right? So I can't say it was planned. It was kind of I fell into it, if you will, but it was somewhat of a natural progression or evolution of career in IT or in technology or engineering or anything like that. So that's how that kind of came to be a little bit. Well, but I think the other part of it is also throughout our lives we are being presented with opportunities, and it's kind of up to each one of us. Hey, do I like to go and try new things, or do I want to stay with what I know and what I feel comfortable with? And there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, everybody is wired differently. I like to try different things from time to time. That seemed to be like an interesting, thing to try. So I got into it, and I found something I really, really like doing.
Now, when you moved on from like an individual contributor into maybe your very first leadership role, what did that look like, and where did that happen?
So that's interesting also because I think the first time I really got into a leadership role was actually back in the military because I started as an enlisted soldier. And after a year and a half, I was sent to Officers Academy. And, then I came back actually to the same unit I left and, was an officer. And now I had to lead, people who graduated with me at the same class, 2 years earlier. So that was, I would say, probably my first kind of leadership role, if you will. And yes, I mean, you go through the officers academy and things like that, and obviously there are some trainings and classes about, how to do that, but you don't really get it until you actually start doing it, right? And obviously military leadership is somewhat different when you do it in the civilian world, because in the military, I would sometimes argue it's easier because they can see your power on your shoulders,
Right.
and nobody will argue, right, when you say something. I mean, over here, it's now civil world is a little different. Now you have to influence more. I mean, you have to convince people more. It's a little different. So I think it's something you kind of grow with over time. And then when I left, when I left the military, I started my own company. So I had that for 6 years. So, recruited people, managed projects. I mean, so, I had that too. And then, I think pretty much every role I had after that, I was leading people in some capacity until eBay. eBay was my first role in 15 years that I actually didn't manage anybody. It was my first
Right.
individual contributor job in like 15 years. And I have to tell you, it was amazing. Like for the first time in 15 years, I didn't have to worry about anybody by myself. It was really easy. It was really fun. But yeah, but it didn't last, I mean, for many years. And then I continued my next role. I also had to manage people again. So there's a lot to be said, I mean, to have, experience of both. But definitely there's times to do this. And there are sometimes you're like, I kind of like my quiet right now.
I understand. I've been through the whole lot of at one point I think I had 40 people working for me, and then starting my own business and really being just me, and then me and my business partner, at least, not having any staff, and then hiring. And yeah, it's yeah, pros and cons to both. When you have good staff and you feel like you're doing a good job as a manager, I think there's not much of a better feeling knowing that you can maybe go away and leave people, and you've got people there that'll they'll actually, they'll step up and be able to do whatever you need them to do. You can trust them to do that. But it's yeah, definitely pros and cons, because also when you have people that you're not sure, and then you give them that opportunity and it doesn't quite work out, it's an added layer of stress. So yeah, I think with both, have you got like any tips for people that are trying to build like maybe from an individual contributor into a leadership role? Is there anything that they can do, or any things that they can work on that you think helps?
I think, and I don't know if it's just for leadership, and I think it's true for everything, but in particular in leadership, I think first and foremost is self-awareness. Is kind of know who you are, and more importantly, know who you are not. And most people don't have that self-awareness, at least to the level that they accurately and precisely know what to do, right? I had an amazing coach and a friend who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. The first time I ran into him was around 2011, 12, and he was a security recruiter at that time. And he reached out to me for a position that he was recruiting for. And I didn't know the guy. I mean, he found me on LinkedIn, we had a call. And I think the first call we had was like for like 2 hours. And he asked, and I never had a call with a recruiter ever for like 2 hours, ever. He was the only one until this day, right? And he asked me a lot of like really, really deep questions. And there was one question in particular that he asked me that I didn't know how to answer back then. And I was able to find a way to answer it after a few many years, but it always kind of stuck with me. And that question was, are you doing what you can, or are you doing what you should? And it was profound, because every time like intersections I had through my career, life, whatever, I call it, was like, am I doing what I can, or am I doing what I should, right? And how do you answer that question? Well, to be able to answer that question, you have to have that self-awareness first. And over the years, and maybe a story for a different day, but he was a person who tremendously, influenced and impacted, my life in to the better, right?
Yeah.
And with him, with the work I did with him, I actually helped me to not only develop that self-awareness, but also be able to answer that question. And that's back to your original question, is that I would say the first place I would start from. Kind of know who you are and know what you like and what you don't like. And if you know who you are and you know what you're capable of, how do you focus on the things that you have the potential not to be good at, but to be great at? And the things that you know that you're not going to be that great at, either don't do them or let somebody else do them, but focus on the things that you can be great at, right? And it's not always possible. We don't always get like to choose exactly everything we want. And, but by and large, I mean, if you're going to be stuck now for the next 5 years in a job that you're going to hate and doing something that it's not you, maybe you're like, you like people, maybe you like to stand in front of a crowd or anything. And that role will stuck you for the next 3 years, sitting in a room by yourself doing spreadsheets all day long. It's going to kill you, right? So, I mean, that's kind of where the self-awareness is coming into. And when you know that and you have those opportunities, then you can answer that question, okay, should I really want to do I really want to do that or not? Hey, I want to be a manager. Why do you want to be a manager? Right? Is it because of what? Right? Do you understand, what it requires to be a manager? You're always between the rock and the hard place. It's not like, oh, you sit there and tell everybody what to do and just go and have coffee, right? And it requires a lot.
Yeah.
And so be able to have that awareness and know who you are and know what you should do and more importantly what you shouldn't and what that's I think one of the first things I would say that critical, right? The second thing I would say is probably relationship building. And this is where, again, and I know some people are more extroverted and some are more introverted, but regardless, and as we talked about before, and especially like in the security community, there's a very, very strong power to the community. And, oftentimes when what we do in security, we need to be able to influence other people in the organization, maybe partners that we have, to do things that are not natural to them for whatever reasons, right? How do you do that if you don't have the relationship with these people? So building that relationship, building that trust, I think that's, also important. And again, these are skills that require polishing, require sharpening, require developing. Go back to, do you know yourself and who you are, right?
Yeah.
And
And
then
is
the
it,
last thing I think it's more like, about how you have this kind of self-control, if you will, or kind of sort of impulse control, right? Think before you speak, or, take that moment, to process before you jump and, do something, even if you know the answer, you're sure you know the answer, nobody else understands the answer around you, but make sure they also get buying and they understand the answer before you're just going to go and, try to shove everything down their throat. So yeah, it's a lot of that, in my opinion.
yeah, they're all interesting aspects of things that people really need to work on. And you can work on them as individual contributors, right? You don't have to wait till you're a leader.
Right.
They're the things that people will notice about you that probably make them think of you as a leader.
Yeah.
Um, and as you said, like not everybody's cut out to be a manager, and people go through. I think people go through different areas of their life and their career, and there's nothing wrong with saying I don't ever want to be a manager, and then changing your mind, right? And there's nothing
Right.
wrong with trying and becoming a leader and having people under you and thinking I don't actually enjoy this, or I'm not ready for this, or I'm going to step back and I'm going to keep doing an individual contributor role. I've seen plenty of people do all of those and be very successful. I think the key of one of the things you mentioned was finding something like being passionate maybe about the thing that you're doing, rather than like becoming a leader because you think you must become a leader because everybody else expects you to become a leader. And sometimes those times will come when maybe very few careers are just a straight ladder up. They make changes. You
Right.
talked about going back to being an individual contributor after being a manager for a lot of the times. And so I think sometimes being brave enough to do the thing that's right for you and not the thing that everybody else thinks is right for you.
100%. 100%. I think at the end of the day, you have to consider what's important to you and what you can be good at, great at. And if you are focusing on the things that you should do, then you can do them no problem. They actually get energized, from doing those. Where you do some things that, yeah, you can do them, but it's not your destiny. It's not like, what you want to do, and yeah, you do that, but you hate it and it drains you and, it's going to drain your battery. And then, oh my God, it's, Sunday night. I need to go back to work on Monday because I hate doing that. Versus, oh my God, I'm going to go and, I'm doing this thing that I love. So I can go back. I can wait to go back to work like on Monday morning, right? So it's that. I mean, it's really that. And if you find the things that really energizes you and you can connect that to your work, it's even better.
Yeah, being able to make a difference. That's the, I
Yeah.
think that's what most people look for. And I've certainly seen, I saw a lot of changes after the pandemic. Prior to that, it was much more common for people to sort of just take the highest paying role. Um, I would, that's a very broad statement, but over all of the placements, over all of the people we'd see, most of the time, the biggest differentiator was the money, right? That would be the thing when people were looking at their job opportunities. 9 times out of 10, they'll take the highest paying one. And I think after the pandemic and all of the different changes that brought, including flexibility, including how you went to work, where you went to work, if you went to work, right, went into an office. People realized that there was a lot more to life than just their work that they were focused on, and all of a sudden, we've certainly since then seen people make many decisions based much more on what difference can I make at a company? Am I going to enjoy going into work, rather than is it paying me this amount more? Because at the end of the day, at some point, like security, you can earn good money, right?
Right.
You can earn very good money doing it. Whether you become a CISO or an individual contributor, you can get paid extremely well. And I think with anything, you got to work out and balance. Is the difference in money really going to make such a big difference to the rest of your life that you might want to sit there and do a job that you're not really interested in or you're not really motivated to do?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's always the question. It's on the one hand, how much do you earn? But the other question you have to ask yourself, at what cost?
Right.
And that cost actually can be much, much higher than whatever you're getting paid to do. So yeah,
And so moving on,
it's not just a lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah. So going on sort of smoothly on from your leadership, your first leadership role. How did you end up getting your first sort of CISO title? Because that's a challenge for many, right? They can be leaders. So a lot of them are actually doing the CISO role at some companies. They just that company won't give them the role, won't give them that title, or there's multiple reasons why that might be happening. But how do you go about getting that first CISO title?
Um, I think it was more of a combination of like timing, luck, education, people knowing, networking, I mean, things like that. So I was working at Cerner at that time. Now it's part of Oracle, and I was a director of security, deputy CISO there. And my boss, he was great and great mentor and a great friend. Um, when I joined the company, they hired me to run the security architecture team. And I had 5 people on my team. And by the time I left, I had like 45 because, I got to run more and more groups within the security practice. And then my manager, my CISO at that time, left, and he actually was interviewing for 2 companies, and then he decided to take one. And then the other company said, "Well, we actually still need somebody. So do you know anybody good that maybe we should talk to?" And he's like, "Talk to Yaron. I mean, he may be interested." That was Blue Cross. That was after the Anthem breach, and they had to the association was kind of the run kind of the whole franchise, if you will. There are 36 different blue plans around the country. Um, Basically, like started to take much more proactive role in dictating to the plans. You have a CISO, you should have a CISO, security practice, and so on. All of them had security, but some didn't really have like a dedicated practice per se. And I think that breach really kind of propelled not just them, but a lot of like people in the healthcare industry and just in the industry in general to really kind of up the game when it comes to security. So I would say opportunity, luck, different things. And, it was interesting because they're like, "Hey, do you want to be a CISO?" And my short answer was yes. And that also was good for me because it was easier for me to connect with the mission.
Right.
Blue Cross was actually the first non-engineering organization I ever worked for. It's a health insurance, and but because it was here in Kansas City, and they have over 50% of the market, essentially every second person on the street was my member. And if you live in this area throughout your lifetime, you're probably going to be a member at least once, right?
Right.
So in a way, I kind of felt the duty to my community, right? Because I'm protecting my family, my neighbors, my friends. It's like being back in the military. So the service, the service and the mission was good and interesting. So that was a lot of fun. I mean, to go and build that practice over there, recruit the people, build the practice, collaborate with the other blue plans, work with the CISOs from the other blue plans. It was absolutely amazing.
That's like I think that's a good. Like, there's a few things you said there that we should probably bring out. Like first off, you were a deputy CISO somewhere else first. So there's a lot of people that like don't realize the deputy CISO is a great step, and a very natural step in. I mean, it sounds obvious because of the title, but a very natural step into CISO. Um, and so if there's an opportunity to do that, I've actually even encouraged people, if you're maybe a very small company and you're a CISO at a small company and you're struggling, I had somebody at B-Sides talk to me and they were struggling to make the step into a much bigger company. So they're a CISO with like literally a handful of people working there and still very much hands-on, and they were looking to make the move to a bigger company and they just weren't getting anywhere with it. And I think like being brave enough to make the decision of saying, okay, I might have this CISO title, but actually this deputy CISO job's a bigger job and will propel my
Yeah.
career is something you've got to be very much open to. And not everybody is, but it is something that nicely moves you on because the CISOs there, they retire, they move on, they go to places, and whether you get that CISO gig where you are already, or whether, like you say, they recommend you for other things, which they absolutely that building of network, those working with people, I've seen it happen consistently. It's a great opportunity. So yeah, I think few learns there for people that are listening and maybe in that situation. Now, what drove you? Obviously, you're local. You're a Kansas City local. Like you say, neighbors, family that are probably members. What was the sort of the thing that made you then look to move on for the next opportunity? And Dolby was your current role is when you moved to from there, right?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I've been at Blue Cross, I think it was a month shy from 5 years. And, I felt that I created the plan, I grew the plan was running. And I think towards the end, I started to feel a little bit bored and I wanted to do something a little bit different. Also an opportunity for somebody else to kind of take the reins and continue kind of start run with it, right? So I definitely want to do something different because I didn't want to get stale, and I feel sometimes if too long stuck in one place, I may get stale if there are no like new opportunities or new adventures, if you will. So yeah, I was starting to look. It was pretty casual initially when I started looking, and that was also during the pandemic. So as you can imagine, it wasn't that easy, to find a role at that time. So I wasn't like super actively looking, but it was more casual. And then a friend of mine, which we used to work at eBay together back in the day, mentioned that his friend, another friend of his, who was the former CISO of Dolby, was actually looking to leave. And he said, if anybody wants to throw the name in the hat, I'm happy to make the connection. So I raised my say, I'll be interested to talk to them. So yeah, he put my name in the hat, and I don't know, it took about 4 months perhaps, and 15 interviews or something like that. When finally, I got the job, so that was good. And yeah, pretty excited about that.
Yeah, it's like there are. I feel like they're like what I talked about. There's like sort of different types of CISOs and CISOs that are in different areas or parts of their career. And there are some that are great that are taking something that's already settled and they're happy to sort of manage that and keep it moving in that direction. And there are others that like they want to go in and make a change, make differences, be that conduit to the digital transformation or whatever it is that they need to do. And I think there are different CISOs for different types of roles, but eventually you'll do what you can, you build the succession, and then ideally put yourself out of a job, right? You want somebody else to hand it over to
Yeah.
run it and on to the next thing. So yeah, that makes sense. And also the way you got the role, I have this discussion a lot. Like we, as a staffing firm, right? Tyro Security, we do retained searches. We've got a great, probably this podcast, good example of it, but a great network of CISOs. We can find the people, but quite often, these positions are filled by who they're filled before they even get to us or any of your CISO placing companies out there, any of the big headhunters. They're placed way before that, right? They're placed by the people that are outgoing. One of the first things many CISOs are asked are, who else do you know? The board members, who else have you interacted with? And a lot of that stuff will be done for many roles. So it's so important, even at this level, to keep your connections fresh. And I know there's quite a lot of CISO societies and Slack. I've set up a Slack channel before many years ago for CISOs, and there's all these sort of different ways to communicate. And I think it's so important that you do that.
Yeah, that networking aspect is extremely important. And for collaboration, for support, you never know when your next job is going to come from. But I can tell you, I think all my last 1, 2, 3, 4, I would say the last 4 jobs probably were through networking. Somebody who knew somebody, or I knew someone, or somebody who knew me through someone and just kind of reached out or something. That networking is extremely important. And building that network, maintaining that network, keeping in touch, helping people, contributing back to your network. It's a lot. It takes time, but once you do it enough, it's kind of becoming second nature to you. And every time you get an opportunity to help somebody, you're planting the seed for something that in the future potentially may come back to you as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's think about other CISOs that are out there and doing a great job. Who do you think who's out there and doing a great job? And then who do I need to tap up to get on here?
Yeah, I think the list is long. I mean, so the question is like keep up, pick out, right? There were several, people who really impact my career and throughout my career, and good friends and people that I look up to and reach out to and collaborate. So one person I can think about is Jairo Rea, who is the CISO at Royal Caribbean. I got to know Jairo through the Cloud Security Alliance. I mean, we
Okay.
were co-chairing together the cloud enterprise architecture, and I learned a lot from Jairo. And one of the things that I remember when we start just kind of working together, I was like, oh my God, when I grow up, I want to be like Jairo. And I learned a lot from him, right? So he's a great friend, and I reach out, and we talked quite often on different things. Um, Subra Kumar Swami, who is actually the CISO at Visa, was my manager at eBay. And Subra, I got to know Subra also through the Cloud Security Alliance back in the day. And great mentor, great friend. I learned a lot from Subra when I was at eBay. And we kept in touch over the years, and we collaborated. And I always appreciated his approach, right, and how, from an architecture perspective, like how we build things and he approached things, and bringing people together. I mean, so that was great. Um, Yael Nagler, she used to be with BlackRock. She was a deputy CISO, I believe, in BlackRock, and chief of staff, and she's actually running her own practice right now. It's called Yaz Partners. And she's actually mentoring and helping CISOs and supporting CISOs with different, when you're a new CISO, first time, or whether you get to an organization and you need somebody to help you, like, initially with understanding the organization, the boundaries, who's going on, the politics, like how to set up some things. Yael is a fantastic resource for that. So, lucky to have her as a friend as well, and reach out and, collaborate and ask different questions. I mean, there's so many people in so many different ways. Mike Johnson, who is the CISO at Rivian,
Yeah.
he's also on the the CISO Series podcast. Also a good friend. Always appreciate, getting his perspective on different things, and how we look at things, and things like that. So when you have people in different type of industries, different type of companies. It's really great to be able to reach out, ask questions, support them whenever they need and things like that. That's how we learn. I mean, there's a long list of other people I can mention.
Can't mention everybody, right? Apologies to
Yeah,
everybody that wasn't
yes,
mentioned.
but yeah, yeah,
I'll have
absolutely.
to. So Hyro and Subra, I'll have to connect with and see if I can get them on here. Mike, I've connected with a few times. I haven't spoken to him recently, so he'd be a good one. I think for sure. I'm sure he's going to have some good stories. Yale, I did a podcast with me and her. We were interviewed by, I can't remember. It was one of the cybersecurity sort of online magazines, and we did a podcast. It was really interesting. It was the first time I'd really connected with her, and we had a really good chat. And she's a great person. I totally agree.
Yeah,
Somebody, yeah, I think she'd have some good things to add to this too. Yeah,
yeah,
all
for
good
sure.
people to follow up. What do you think when you look at those people? We talk about the attributes, the big three attributes for each person, and I've got this top 10 I'm kind of collating. What are the three attributes you see in, if you think about those people, what are the ones that make a big difference that CISOs really need to work on?
I think everybody is in a different way. I mean, they have their own qualities, right? So, Yael is definitely the one that she's kind of like my mother when I can call and say, hey, I need something, but she's also the one who's going to scold me and like, hey, you do this, you do that, right? So, having that ability, having that connection and, be able to trust that, with people like that, I think that's definitely helpful. Fantastic relationship builder. And, she really understands the dynamics of people, and things like that. Um, Mike has a very broad view, not just from what the work he was doing on the podcast and stuff, but also have a very broad view from his career and the things that he did. Also in different industries and different scales of company, engineering, whatnot. So it's always interesting, I mean, to get Mike's perspective. I mean, he was at Salesforce and now he's like in automotive in Rivian, right? I mean, so these are two different types of organizations. So that's always, good for him. And again, collaboration, connection, friendships. Hiro, same thing. I mean, I try to model myself after Hiro since, again, I wanted to be him when I grow up. So I always appreciate loving it to him. And Surba, same thing. I mean, just understanding Surba, especially I've seen him like how he operates. Very, very calm, no drama, kind of give you like this sense of like, look, we got things under control. We figured this out, right? So it's always there's different qualities for each one person, and you take something from each one of those. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a great ability. I mean, hopefully this is where the podcast comes in, right? We're lucky enough. I'm lucky to speak to CISOs, and I've been speaking to them for years, and I can have these conversations. And you're in that industry. You're a CISO yourself, so you're in that network having those conversations. But there's probably a whole bunch of people out there that either are early on in their career or just don't have the network, and this is their ability to sort of hear what those people are like and what each individual person's career like yourself has been like, and then try and model themselves and pick up the things that they can work on, because you can work on anything. Like there's nothing, and this is the interesting thing. And I think one of the things that comes out of this podcast, out of all the interviews I've done so far, is that no matter where you are in your career, you are still on the path. So even when you feel you're not on the path, you are on the path. And you can look and learn and pick these things that you're good at, things that you're not so good at, and things that you need to work on. And then there's a million different ways that you can build those skills without, prior to you're putting yourself in the best position. So when you do get that next promotion opportunity, when you get the leadership role, when you manage to get an opportunity, an ex-CISO role, you've got all the strengths to do that. So yeah, I think like naming people and talking about their attributes helps that, because you know them personally and you see the things that really stand out. So yeah, so hopefully there's a good opportunity for people to learn on here. Now looking back, yeah, go
And
on,
by the way,
sorry.
just one more comment.
Yeah,
It's not just CISOs. It's also other people in the community.
right.
So I'm lucky to work with a lot of people around the community on different roles. Some of them are on my vendor side. Some of them are partners. Some of them are in sales, some of them are in marketing, right? I mean, so there's value to a lot of the people that you have in that community, and they're all part of that community because at the end of the day, we all need each other. We all need to support each other. It's a big mission. There's no one person who can do it all. So how do we build those relationships? How do we build that support? How do we help and support each other, whether it's on the company side, on the vendor side, or whatever the case may be, the service providers. Um, yeah, it's the network. The more you can, in my opinion, the more you can connect, and the more people and diverse people that you can have in your network from different backgrounds and experiences and roles, you can learn from, you can contribute to, you can support. I think the better you are.
I really appreciate you saying that because, yeah, I mean, we're talking about route to CISO. We talk a lot about CISOs and the people being interviewed as CISOs, but you can learn off anybody, right? You don't have to directly learn from the people that are maybe above you and or your boss or other people's bosses. There's a whole bunch of people. I think even when you get, I think this is one of the things that some companies are missing out on, right? There's not many entry level roles. They're not creating enough of those. And when you bring in people at that entry level, they bring in fresh ideas. They might bring in ideas that people are like, oh, that seems a bit silly. Actually, but then you think about it, actually, they're just simplifying it. Maybe there is a way of doing that, but you've got to be open to listening and hearing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely.
Yeah, I'd love to. I want to see more companies bringing in more entry level people. I think that's my biggest worry. If there's any worry I've got for our industry right now, that is the number one biggest one for me because I feel like most companies are just relying on somebody else to bring them out. Somebody else will bring on an entry level person, and once they've got a couple of years experience, then I'll hire them. I'll pay them a bit more money. I'll bring them across, and there's not enough companies opening up those entry level roles. And I know there's various reasons behind that. Certainly budgets, people have to work very tough on budgets, and many security departments being seen as a cost are underfunded, and therefore have people that many of them are overworked in there because they're not managing to bring on as many staff there could be. But I think I don't know what we can do to change that other than us all talking about it and trying to make differences individually. But that's my biggest worry. I don't know how you feel about that as a problem in our
I
industry.
Yeah, I agree. I think we definitely need to have more opportunities. I think the economy has to do a lot with that.
Hmm.
And like you mentioned, right, we have been pressured to do more with less. And especially when you are so short-staffed and the budgets are so constrained, you have to rely on more experienced people to actually do the more work with less people. And I know there's also concerns from companies to hire like early careers and then, whatever, 2 or 3 years, and then they leave and, all your investment, is gone, right? But at the same time, you contribute to the whole industry and everything else. I don't know, I think I feel it's cyclical in some ways. It's phases that we go through. Maybe right now it's not the best time, and we've been in this weird, I don't know, yes, recession, no recession
Yep. Yeah.
going on. What's going to happen, for the last, I don't know, maybe 2 years. Um, but frankly, I mean, before that, if you think about since the pandemic, 2020-ish timeframe and 2022, there was a huge boom in terms of like hiring security professionals and the North roles, and it was impossible to find anybody.
Right.
So, it's ebbs and flows. It's yin and yang, whatever you want to call this. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. But in the long run, I mean, I think there's definitely opportunities. And we will need more people in this industry. I mean, this is no slowing down. The economy is not going to stay bad forever. Things are going to change, and they're going to be much, much better, and they're going to go bad again and then better again. I mean, that's part of life, right? But I think definitely, I mean, as we look at new opportunities, you think about cloud, you think about we've been on this cloud journey for the last 15 years, but we are at the beginning still, right? AI, whatever that will come out of that, and the opportunities that may create. I know a lot of people concerned, oh, AI is going to take our jobs away. Actually, I don't think that's going to be the case. Actually, it's going to create a more interesting and more, new opportunities. I mean, so as long as you're willing to learn, adapt, change, I think, all those big technological jumps that we had actually created more jobs and more opportunities for
Yeah.
people. So, we'll see. I'm optimistic by nature. But it doesn't mean that we're not going through like down periods from time to time. And unfortunately, that may be like one of them, but I think overall, things are going to get better.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's one of the things, obviously, as a company, we place experienced people. So for us, people hiring more experienced people and not hiring the entry level people as a business is good for us, right? Because that's what we do. That's the area we do. It makes it tougher and tougher to find good people, and then you need to rely on a specialist company or somebody like us to be able to do that. But yeah, I feel like more investment. I feel like if you bring people on and you train them up, they tend to be very loyal. And if you pay them the going rate and you keep giving them opportunities, and some people, like some companies, will just you'll just realize that this is what we're able to do and this is what we're not able to do, right? So we can bring them in. We'll be able to keep them for 3 years and keep them interested and keep them moving along. And then ultimately, at that point, for every 10 people, there's going to be one opportunity, and so we got to understand that some of those other people are going to move on. But people then come back, and people have experience, and they go and get other experience, and they come back into the businesses. So yeah, I think it's always a good investment if it's something that you can put into it.
And also, I mean, I think it's also important to note that there are a lot of opportunities that are sometimes not obvious. So, for example, yes, everybody wants to go and work for Google and Microsoft and Amazon or whatever. Okay, got it. But there are many other organizations, maybe smaller, maybe in more rural areas, maybe in other places that definitely need the help. And they will be more than happy, I mean, to pay quite well. I mean, for people, even who are not much experienced, just to have somebody who will be able to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of those. Once you kind of get beyond the top layers, if you will, right? There are many other opportunities, and you can never know where those opportunities are going to lead you to. It's no different than maybe you're an athlete and you want to try to go to college and you're really trying to go play Division 1, but it's really, really hard to get there, right? Then maybe you're going to be a small fish in Division 1, but you may be like a big fish in Division 2. So I mean, don't overlook that. I mean, see what opportunities you have, and sometimes you can they're going to be the spark that will start your career on the right path, or give it the different opportunities, then you can grow from there later. So don't limit yourself.
Yeah, sometimes you got to create those opportunities yourself, right? Sometimes you can see the opportunity and then you fit yourself and create the job that solves that problem. So yeah, absolutely right. I've only got a couple more questions for you.
Right.
So just a couple. I ask everybody these. They're my favorite way to sort of tie it up. And so the first thing would be, you've had a great career so far. You've had a lot of experience. If you could go back to young Yaron and say, what's the one piece of career advice that you would go back and give yourself?
I would go back to the same thing I said before. The question that Jeff asked me, my coach at that time, is do what you should and not what you can. Really, really try to develop that and self-awareness early on. And if you don't know how to do it, and get help, I mean, doing that, and there's a lot of people who are going to help you do that. But I think once you get this understanding early on in your career, it will make your life better or easier. That's probably, I don't have regrets. I'm actually pretty happy how things kind of turn around. Steve Jobs once said, it was, I think, his commencement speech that he gave, I think, in Stanford. And he said, you can't really look forward and connect the dots forward. You can only look back and see how the dots connected in the back, right? Or back when you look backwards. I think it's kind of the same thing. I don't have any regrets. If there was one thing I would say I would have done differently earlier in my career, is that really focusing on that, really understanding what I should do as opposed to what I can do. I think that's something that is very, very important for a lot of people.
I love that saying. I've never heard it before, and I can as you're when you were saying it earlier, I was thinking, yeah, do you know what? There are plenty of things that I do because I can do them, and I need to get them done. But actually, I could probably get them done in other ways and focus on the things that I really should be doing. And you're right. Sometimes you almost make excuses for yourself, like, okay, I'm busy. I've got to keep busy. I've got all this to do. Let me get this stuff done, and it will make me feel like I've got something achieved today, even though it's not the stuff you really should be doing. So yeah, I'm going to take that on board myself. Hopefully, it's good for everybody else too.
And yeah, and also, I mean, in addition to that, it's also each and every one of us has something unique about them that makes them who they are, right? And don't try to be like anybody else. You're special within yourself, right? So bring that specialty, bring that, uniqueness of you outside, right? These are the things you should do. And people appreciate that, right? If you're a great networker, if you're a great relationship builder, if you're a teacher, if you're whatever your passion is, when you can connect that passion, I mean, to kind of what you do, I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's kind of the best thing. It energizes you. It feels great to do that. It doesn't feel like work. I mean, right? I mean, so that's that's the thing that I'm looking at. Like, what are the things, and how do I focus on the things that I should do? So,
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Like I say, so one last question for you. Being a hiring manager for a long time, and right now, as we talked about, there's a lot of people that, they see job adverts, they're applying, they're one of 3, 4, 500 applicants. They're struggling to stand out. They're struggling to get any traction, and a lot of people are looking at oh, can you look at my resume, Chris? Can you have a phone call with me? Is it a resume problem? Is it whatever it might be? And I know I have my own thoughts on all the things that people can do, but you've been through, you've hired these people, you hire these people now, whether they're entry level or experienced. What are the things that you think people need to do that really stand out? What are the things that you look for when you're looking to hire somebody?
so I would say actively, and so two things. One is be very active about your career and own your career. And what I mean by that is learn, connect with people, network, contribute, right? As you do all of those different things, and be involved beyond just your job, right? Because especially in security, I mean, you see that, yep, you can go and do your job 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever the case may be. Go home, just fine. You have other hobbies, that's great. I mean, definitely. I mean, you definitely need that out and different thing to do. I just started to learn how to play piano a year and a half ago because I wanted to do something different, right? It has nothing to do with my job. um, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of opportunities around kind of what we do. And, we talked earlier about, hey, go to a conference, go to local conference if you cannot pay going to like a big one. There's tons of like B-sides around the
Mm-hmm.
country, ISACA, IS Square, ISA Square. There are many. I mean, and you can always find opportunity to go learn something. Keep your mind fresh. It can be like on the cyber side, it could be on the physical side, it could be like many other things, not even just security, but all of those things that you can learn and the skills that you can gain, they can help you later on with your job. Network, build that network. How do you do that? Mostly by helping other people. And when you help other people, when you talk to other people, when you meet new people, maybe you don't have time. Maybe it's not like, hey, I'm going to send my resume to Chris to look for, and he doesn't have time right now. He's busy, and he has a business to run and whatever. Maybe I run into Chris in some local conference, and I heard him on a talk and say, "Hey, Chris, do you have 5 minutes to sit with me? Just gonna go over my resume." I'm sure Chris will be happy to do it, like if you run into you in a conference when he's not like in his office and phones are ringing off the wall, right? So I think like that. I mean, let's network, build, right? Continue to expand, continue to learn learn and enhance your skills. That's, I think, a lot of what we're looking for. What I'm looking for, like when I interview people, like what's their potential? What makes them tick? Are they doing what they can? Are they doing what they should? Um, a question I ask in almost every interview when I interview somebody is like, "Tell me how you learn." And I love it when people say, "Hey, I don't know, I had just picked up this whatever few parts on eBay and I constructed my own computer and I did this and I did that and I tried this and I tried that." Awesome, love it, right? Because they know they're looking. I mean, they're passionate about it. I mean, they're learning something, like to tinker with stuff. These are people who kind of wired kind of the right way. Again, it depends on the jobs, right? It depends like what they're trying to do. But I think don't wait until you need your network to start building it, right? Because I see
Yes.
that a lot of people, right? They're like lost their job and now they're trying to post some things on LinkedIn and trying to find people on LinkedIn and connect with people. Like you should do that long, long time ago, and it should be part of like the ongoing things that you're doing.
Yep.
So help somebody, network, connect. It will come back to you.
100%. And I'm a believer that I think also on top of that, like you said, like network previous to actually needing it, but also think about that sort of stuff. Like I see some people and they're they're down on salespeople, they're down on vendors, they're down on recruitment people, right? Because they don't need that service right now. Like they don't necessarily handle and manage like those relationships very well. But at some point you might need those people. I can't tell you like the number of CISOs that haven't spoke to me, haven't returned a call. I've been introduced to them via somebody, and then I never hear from them, and they're like, well, I don't need recruitment services right now. But the moment they're looking for a job, oh yeah, they're like, when are you going to schedule time with me, right? So I think stuff like that. I say to people as well, people like your vendors, like your sales, your people that are selling whatever products and stuff you're talking to. Those people are in the know. They know what's going on out there. They're very well connected, and just because you don't, I'm fine with people. If you don't need recruitment, that doesn't mean like we can't have a conversation, or it doesn't mean we can't bump into each other at a conference and have a drink and talk about nothing to do with recruitment, right? So it's good to have those connections anyway, and be thinking about them in advance. So I think that's a good thought to end it on.
Absolutely. And I if I may just kind of one more quick story. You never know where it's going to come from, and you never know who is you're going to connect with. And if you're not open to those types of connections, you're going to miss on some really, really amazing people. I can tell you like a story, when I was at ANX, managed VPN services that we talked about earlier. And I got a call, one day from the CEO, and he said, hey, we hired this sales consultant, and you need to talk to her and tell her everything you do. And, she's going to report to me and let me know, like, what can we do with this thing? And guess what? The first question goes to my head. I'm like, oh my God, who is this lady I need to talk to? And just, explain my job to and everything else, right? She called me. We talked. She was amazing. We connected right away. I learned a lot from her. Her name is Tammy. And, we've stayed in touch, for the last, 15 plus years. Since, the first time we connected. And, I worked with her quite a bit during that time when, the CEO can ask us to do the work. And she's the one who helped me with the go-to-market strategy of that product. That go-to-market strategy helped us to get to eBay. That's how I got to know the eBay folks, which later on, turned into like, hey, I left ANX. Do you have a project? They want to work for us, right? You never know how it happened. I learned from her how to network.
Yes.
Right. And if I look back at my career, I would say, hey, some people, they kind of come to your life and they're like pivotal in the changes. Definitely one of them. And you never know. And there are others as well, right? But be grateful for those opportunities that kind of come along your way. And you can never know, who those people are going to be and what the impact they're going to have on your life. And it's usually a good one. So
Thank you so much, Yaron. Thank you. I appreciate you spending all this time talking through your experience, but also sharing like these bits of advice. And I think it's been a really enjoyable podcast, and for me anyway. So even if nobody else likes it, which I don't think is going to happen, I've really enjoyed it. So that's what the idea of these things, right? We have these conversations, and I think most of us feel that same way. We enjoy these conversations, and I feel if I'm going to enjoy it, hopefully there's a whole bunch of other people out there will do as well, and I'm sure that will be the case. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for putting those together. It was a lot of fun, and I think this brings a lot of value to the community and give us the ability to learn from each other. So thank you for putting this together.
Thank you for listening to the Route to CISO podcast. If there's something you really want me to ask on the next episode, or if you're a CISO who wants to inspire the next generation, please reach out. I'll leave a URL to my LinkedIn profile, and make sure you connect and message me there. We're always looking for feedback, so please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.